Yo, check this out. This is Wayne Wonder, representing for Warieka LTV. You see the vision, don't it? See the vision. Warieka LTV. Keep it locked.
No, I'm gonna tell you. We as bloggers, these are the issues that we need to address. You understand what I said? You see? Set the path for the youth. Share, like, and subscribe and stay tuned to the channel. I don't know all this. Yes, I. Greetings once again at the mighty name of His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie the First. You see, now I and I will continue with reading from the book again. Born for that, a long time when I read it. Seeing, so we'll get on with some more, right? And gain some more knowledge and reveal some more reveal as it's hidden. You see it. So, yes, I will give thanks. Here we go again. A soldier in the field. All right. Brambles was still living in Rakai's crack spot. Reconciled to his own protracted exile in New York, he was caught in the catch-22 of a Jamaican sufferer lost in the promised land, the unwritten cultural law that says, if you can't come back from America with your pocket full, then don't come back at all. Jamaicans assume that anyone with the right stuff will come home rich, and any other scenario is so humiliating that it is unthinkable. So Brambles stayed doggedly on, sending his meager earnings home to his son and daughter and freezing through one winter after another. He never relinquished his dream. Shenda's fortunes, meanwhile, was improving. She had stopped smoking crack every day and had moved out of the papa's graveyard and into the basement flat of an older man named Mac. Mac was a Jamaican landlord with an array of decrepit buildings scattered across Crown Heights. He was also a fierce anti-Semite, convinced that Jew lawyers, not the drug dealers who didn't pay rent, were bilking him out of his profits. I got a slug of Jew baiting whenever I went to see Shenda. It was ranged from the good-natured to the vicious, depending on, on Mac's mood and how much rum he had had that day. But he respected me for my learning and called me Doc. A few months before Trevor Phillips and I met, I was at Mac's for an afternoon visit with Shenda. They were waiting for a young Jamaican named Courtney to show up with a gun that Courtney was trying to sell to Mac. Shenda said that Courtney was a gun hawk for the shower posse, a small-time dealer of stolen weapons and drugs. Courtney strolled in right on schedule, wearing a black leather windbreaker with a gun nestled in his pocket. He was slow-eyed and very dark, and his hair was sculpted into a fade with a razor hashed out on one side. He reminded me a little of Delroy Edwards, and when I told him so, he preemed at the comparison. You remember that body they found over on Rogers with a bullet in his head and his two eyes stuffed in his mouth and his two balls stuffed in his mouth? Courtney asked. That was one of Delroy's savagism. Who's was a savage, I know, because I worked for him and I stole from him too. When I sell something for $50 and somebody come for a $10 vial, I just put a piece off of the 50 and sell it for the 10 and still sell the 50. So I have $10 in my own pocket, and the next thing you know, I have 1,000. He grinned engagingly. Uzi's coming out of jail one of these days, he nodded. I mentioned that it would be hard to come out with a 501-year sentence and no parole, but Courtney had his own ideas. You know how I know, because he has the strongest phobia. and Obia works. I know Mother be the Asian woman Delroy use. If you get a hear from somebody said, I'm put it in a jar and bring it to Mother B, she said, kiss, 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 that. You're dead. You go mad, whatever. And the doctor can't tell you why. Make a coconut tree grow in your belly and come out through your mouth and you don't know why. Yeah, Delroy go 80 for him Obia. And that is why I tell you Delroy gonna come out one of these days. Ain't no motherfucking judge can stop no voodoo. Mac asked to see the gun and Courtney produced a dull black Glock 9mm. He said it came from Texas, one of the posse's favorite states, along with Virginia, Florida, and Ohio for buying guns. There were retailers who would arrange a theft for posse men if they bought in bulk. Then the dealer would write it off as his insurance. This meant that the guns sold for less than retail prices on the street. Courtney was asking Mac only $100 for the Glock. My guns come up from Houston, he said proudly, showing Mac how to insert the clip of hollow-headed bullets into the gun's grip. Greyhound drivers bring them up. Tractor trailer bring them up. The Glock run things now. Courtney couldn't resist bragging. When you have a name as a gun hawk, somebody who is well into the business and don't fear police, detectives, whoever comes upon you, then you get to move with anybody you want to. You move under the ground. I have certain people who I am like a son to because they can rely on me. If they give me a gun and say, go out there and kill that man, I would do it. I would feel nothing about doing that. I'd kill a person in a quick second if the money was good. Mac and Shenda didn't say a word. I just stared at Courtney. For a man to kill a man, it feels good, he went on. You understand? Because you can kill a man, you get hot. He said the word in a breathy stage whisper. You get bold. You are right when you kill a man, because you got it made. Mac decided that maybe he didn't want the gun that day. But Courtney was undismayed. If you don't see me with a gun in my pocket, you know I is a fuckery, he said cheerfully and tucked the gun away. He and Shenda were hungry, so we drove to Ashanti, one of her favorite restaurants. And the way we passed the corner of Sterling and Schenectady with Courtney keeping up a running pattern like a guide. The gully right now is the roughest, Courtney said. Rough, enough respect. You better have faith them man there. They're juggling kilos. They're not fucking around. Chinaman run the thing. You ever see Chinaman yet? Light-skinned brother. That's how come he get his name. Move like a ghost. They couldn't sound like him can chat no bumbleclot. Why? Courtney made Shenda slow down so he could point out the brightly colored mural above the Crown Heights Soccer and Domino Association, the little video parlor and social club next door to the Gully's apartment building. One side of the mural was a soccer game and the other was a foursome playing domino. One of the players was Chinaman. That's him up there on the right. Courtney leaned forward from the back seat to point. This here is the killing field. Ain't no corner in Brooklyn you can tell me is rough like this. Courtney had a boombox voice that turned the car into a sound chamber, and when he got to the Ashanti, he felt no need to simmer down. He talked so loud that the other customers eyed us with great interest, and Shenda kept plucking his sleeves to quiet him down. So he tried a stage whisper like the one he had used to describe how it feels to kill. He said that he had come to Babylon as a teenager. He'd left Jamaica to go to West Virginia on an act-picking contract, but he knew plenty of Jamaicans in New York and they urged him to bail out of his work contract. Some of his Brooklyn friends was running with the shower posse, but sometimes I don't even really consider myself a shower. Courtney said, between mouthful of chicken, rice and peas, I just consider myself as one young man, confused in this society by the way my leaders made me. He did what he did for the money, not because he had any great love for Siaga or the JLP. Why should two white men like Manley and Siaga be running a black country? It don't make no sense. There is gonna be mix up, bound to be. They're only giving black youth and youth gun. So Siaga is bullshit, Manley is bullshit. Jamaica don't have no right leader. It's just you is PNP, me is Labour right. You bring down gun, me bring down gun, and we kill one another. He got up to order a drink, hesitating between Irish mash and another roots tonic called front end lifter. Irish mash is a gelatinous concoction made from seaweeds, and like the lifter, it is supposed to be an aphrodisiac. Courtney decided on the Irish mash and sat back down. So I considered myself as a young man who is trying to get something out of life, any which way I can. But I see that I can't really do that in Jamaica or here. In Jamaica, it's because of the way the leaders make things. They give all the money to the white people and stir up everyone's mind. But you see, we are still in slavery in our own country. And you know who put us under slavery? Our own. That's who. Not the white man, but our own rascal kind. JLP, PNP, all of them is one. They all are pure gangsters now. The customers at the Ashanti were listening raptly. It made Shenda nervous, so she suggested that we cruise around for a while. It was still early on a Friday afternoon, and the sidewalks along Kingston Avenue, the main shopping street in the Hasidic section of Crown Heights, were crowded with women shopping for the Sabbath. They straddled their strollers and shepherded large flocks of children, careful to ignore the African Americans who sauntered by with big tape decks blaring raps and dancehall music. The Hasidic men congregated on the corner in earnest discussion, wearing black frock, Hasidic, wearing black frock coat and fur-trimmed hat. They looked as if they had stepped out of a shuttle in 17th century Russia. This was the year before the 1991 riot in Crown Heights. 3 days of wrath between the Hasidism and their African American and Caribbean neighbors. The riot came after a child from Guyana, Gavin Cato, was struck and killed by a Hasidic driver. An ambulance swept the uninjured driver from the scene while Cato bled to death on the sidewalk. The ensuing riot was yet to come, but the tension that fueled it were already present. Enmity between the races was old. Courtney stared hard at the Jews. I don't check too much for white people, he muttered. I see certain things go down in this neighborhood in my days, and this is the way I become. I harden my heart and say, me is a soldier. Shenda threw him a warming look from the driver's seat. Courtney ignored her. I'm going to be straight with you, he said. Don't hate me for what I'm going to say. I come over here and fling bottle at the Jew them. And if me catch one of them and me have a gun on me, me would let off bullets in them too. The reason why I would do it is because I love black people and this is a black Jew thing. You see, I never forget where I come from and I never forget my anger. A rebel attitude in black people come up from the time you enslave us. This is our nature ever since you started to separate us from our families. I knew everything about this world. This is my world. I know how to struggle and I know how to survive. The only thing you have to understand about Jamaican is that we are not afraid of nothing. We think we can't dead. We have 9 lives like a cat. Shenda sucked her teeth in disgust. What you mean, Courtney? Struggle and survive. How black people going to survive if them all the wild kill one another? How them supposed to raise up with people? Courtney went into a full flush of rage. The black race will never rise, he shouted back. Never, because black people is out to get what's theirs. If white people like the Jews can still move good with one another, it's only because they're not living by the drugs business. And that is where black people find themselves now in this rascal country. It's a tightrope we walk all the time. When I see the gully men war with Delra's posse, it's just a tightrope them a war. One night it's pure gunshot and man drop dead. Police come, line off the body with yellow tape, pick it up, put it in the dead house, body gone. Next morning, everybody cool, back to square one. So what's going to stop the violence, I asked. The fighting will never stop, Courtney answered, slouching back into his seat. No, I don't really understand what all the fighting is for neither. But I know that it will never end, because if I have a son, I'm going to grow him up under one condition. Me will tell him, Star, you is a shower man. You have to do what your general says. Me will grow him up and sometimes kick him down. You understand? Do him some cruel thing just to make him get tough, to make him get cruel, like how Delroy killed his own father. Courtney didn't stop to consider the patricidal implications of this child rearing theory. It was getting late and he had to go back. He has to go pick up his daughter at school. The three of us met a few nights later at a bar called the Turntable, a popular posse watering hole. The owner's son had recently been killed by a gunman from the gully. And Courtney described slaying as we sat down with our beers. When they shot him, they destroyed his back. You know what that means? The hole in his back come clear through his chest. He died with half a kilo in his pocket. That means the killer did not want his drug. This here is the Wild West, you know, he grinned. He grinned. They could film Bonanza over here. Little Joe Cartwright. A friend of Courtney's soon came in and joined us at the table. Courtney introduced him simply as Jed, the generic nickname for a Rasta man. He wore an enormous leather hat over his locks. Jed crossed his arms over his chest and sat in absolute sullen silence while Courtney talked. His subject was the conclusion between drug dealers and corrupt cops. The collusion between drug dealers and corrupt cops. So I was paying close attention and ignoring Jed. But there was something about him that made me very uneasy. I just couldn't tell what it was. You remember when the 77 precinct thing blew open? Courtney was saying. That hurt a lot of the guys who were selling for the cops. Certain police would go on a raid and certain things they find never surface again, you see. If them find you with, say, 6 kilos, they only need 1 to hold you. Where does the other 5 go? 1 alone will put you away for 15 years. So the cops will come to one of us with the rest and say, help us unload this. And when we hear about 5 kilos, we say, God, you know how much money we can make off of that? And right away, we will pay the cop before we even sell it, because it's an investment. So now the cop is hooked on the money, same as we, and they must get a black man to sell drugs for them every time, because they know that if a white man goes into our territory, enough eyes gonna be upon him. Jed smiled enigmatically. Courtney described how he had even imitated the cops and done his own raids on dealers. You even see police play Tarzan, go up on the roof, swing through a window, feet first, with them plexiglass shield, and break down the whole motherfucking thing. Me, like, see that. I have one of them shields myself. Me and a couple of Jamaicans went around busting crack spots as police, something we see in America's Most Wanted. His voice was booming again, but the DJ was playing full decibel dance hard that almost drowned him out. Freeze, Courtney bellowed, imitating the police. Shenda and I caught each other's eyes, both of us flashing back to that day at the Papa's graveyard when we had heard the same command. Don't move, Courtney continued, holding us hostage to his drama. Get against the wall. Get the F down on the floor. He sat back, folded his arms over his chest and grinned maniacally. So then, we get their stuff, handcuff them to the radiator and say bye-bye. And say bye folks, see you all later. After that night, Courtney and I started meeting on our own in Central Park. He liked the open air privacy of the park's terrain. It was cold, but we would bundle ourselves in warm clothes and meet on the benches underneath the Gothic turrets of the Dakota. From there, we usually walked to a massive rock on the edge of the boat lake. In the park, free from his need to keep the bravado mask that he always wore in Brooklyn, Courtney would bum some of the rap songs he had written. They were about violence and they did not sing its praises. How they give us guns to shoot our brothers down, one of his songs began. It was about a Jamaican who comes to Brooklyn, goes on drugs and uses up all his thoughts in the quest for power. Ghetto struggler want me to take this brother down, Courtney sang, for the money that he owes. Put the gun in my hand and the money in my pocket. When I knock on Henry's door with tears in my eyes, I see Henriette's baby on his side. I close my eyes. 2 shots out of the 9. Henry dropped to the floor. Ghetto struggler. I killed my brother now. Now I'm feeling the pain, but who's to blame? The rich man sit down upon his stone, and he's not black, he's white, but who is to blame? They keep us in bondage, Courtney said, wiping his running nose on his jacket sleeve. The chains are off my feet, still my mind is in captivity. I don't know when black people will wake up and see that the chains are gone, but our minds are gone also. Seagulls wheeled over the lake and a few mallards slapped down on the water, quacking softly at their mates. Behind us on the bridle path, a beautifully turned out rider centered past, a vision of the other New York. She was wearing an elegant black jacket, fawn-colored breeches, and glossy black boots. The flanks of her chestnut horse gleamed from many brushing. Courtney squinted at her and said she looked like a movie, but not one of the ones he would pay to go see. I asked him what he thought about the connection between movies and violence. It's like these movies hype pure badness, he answered. I see since Scarface come out in the 70s, how everyone we want to play Scarface. Certain movies seem to turn people wicked same time. Things like Scarface, Rambo, The Godfather mean something very different in the ghetto. It's like white people can watch them film and not turn killer same time, but in the ghetto we see so much killing that the films are like real life. Me remember one thing, me remember one time I was watching Scarface with my little crew and all of we wanted to be just like him. Wanted big dollars and this big weird thing. We want to go rob man and take away all this cocaine, just like in that movie. Snort up enough cocaine and get well paranoid and go catch enough girls and shoot up a club full of people. Then we would run things. Every man going to hear about our syndicate. We're going to be just like the French Connection. We were walking to the subway on 72nd Street and stopped to say goodbye across from the Dakota. Yeah, Courtney said, just like Scarface, but a pity we now know that all our way would get dead. The next time we met, Courtney brought Jed. He was just as quiet as he'd been at the turntable, sitting sphinx-like when Courtney mentioned that he had an older friend from the shower, a man called Nines, short for 9 millimeter, who wanted to Me. Right now, a shipment of gun is coming from Ohio, and Nines is receiving it. Courtney explained, but him is against it still. He sees the way. It's like him sick and fed up with it. All these guns is just for youth and youth. So Nines was talking that way to me, saying, "Why can't man wake up and smell the coffee?" You understand? The shower was still going strong in New York, Miami, and Los Angeles. Jim Brown was in Kingston and Vivian Blake was traveling back and forth. But now that Michael Manley had become Prime Minister again in 1989, federal agents were hoping that Jamaica's PNP government would finally deliver Jim Brown to them. They had begun extradition proceedings against him, but Brown was playing for time by appealing the extradition order to the British Privy Council, Jamaica's court of last resort. In the meantime, he was still on the loose in Tivoli Gardens. In July 1990, the Kingston police tried to arrest him there with a force of 80 men. They were caught in a gun battle that killed 4 policemen. The word on the street in Kingston was that if the Americans roped in Jim Brown, the Tivoliites would go over to Montego Bay and start killing tourists. The State Department didn't like the sound of that, so American embassy officials in Kingston told the Drug Enforcement Administration and Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco and Firearms to leave Jim Brown alone for the time being. Whoever this man Nines was, he had to be very brave and very disenchanted with the shower if he was considering talking to me. Nines is an older man, Courtney said, being in this thing since his Kingston days, being shot 36 times, and he is confused right now because them is pushing up the lickless youth to run things, and that is why Nines is sick of the business. Him have kids. Him have one big son right now who is a dealer, and it hurts him. Him have to hide from him own son right now because his son want to kill him. Courtney called me on the run, Courtney called me on the run from a payphone in Brooklyn a few nights later. Someone had shot at him on the streets in front of the bucket and then trailed him home, firing a few rounds through the window of the room where Courtney's wife and daughter lay sleeping. The worst part of it is I know who talked, Courtney said, choking with fear, all of his bravado gone. It had to be Jed. He was the only one who knew about me and you and Nines being ready to talk. My worst mistake was getting involved in certain things where when you wish you could back off, it's too late. That's what Nines say. When you want to back off, it's too late. You have to stay steady and stand firm and not leave your headquarters till death do you part. It's like a marriage certificate you sign. If you leave, you know too much and the next man going to kill you. That is part of a syndicate. Ain't no leaving but to die. We saw each other one last time, meeting on our bench in the park. He had already put his wife and child on a bus to Chicago, where her parents live, and he was about to follow them. But he had a letter from me from Nines. Dear Larry. It began with a heart drawn around my name. I have heard a lot of things that impressed me about your book from our friend. We have so much in common, but I only have a short time to let you know all the things going on in Jamaica and with the shower crew. From last week, I was not careful of what I was doing and the wrong man got to know things. This note might cost me my life. Courtney had told me that Nines had grown up in Trenchtown and that before he linked up with the shower, he had been on the other side in the political wars, running with the infamous Tony Welch and the Concrete Jungle gang. Nines letter continued. But I want you to keep on with your book because it's got to get out to stop the violence that is in Jamaica. I remember the days when Tony Welch and the Jungleites was trying to teach us that we must love one another and defend our area. I was much younger then, and I was the leader of my pack at the time. But the love we were spreading was a bloody love, killing our own people for our foolishness. At the time, I didn't realize what I was doing. I was much too deep into it to get out, so I just kept on killing. Courtney told me that you wanted to know how the shower got started. Jim Brown and the rest of the shower was like Robin Hood, taking from the rich to give to the poor, but politics seemed to break up everything. Jim Brown wasn't like that, that wasn't the case. Jim Brown was a plant by Siaga. The man them before was who he's talking about. I was holding the fluttering pages of Nine's letter as a strong wind threatened to carry them off. There's a lot of things going on in the streets along with the guns. Manhattan is the headquarters for the Spanglers and the Shower, and a lot of Colombians are involved in the run-ins. It has been said that Colombian Calicates, which has surpassed its Medellin competitors as South America's preeminent cocaine organization, handpicked the Showers to distribute the cartel's cocaine in England, where the posse were establishing a second frontier by this time. But Nines was only saying that everyone knew that the Jamaican gang had to deal with the Colombian, simply because the cocaine was theirs and theirs alone. The letter ended. There is innocent blood shedding down in Kingston. Ladies are dying, families are suffering, and the leaders are laughing, giving youths and youths guns and drugs to fight against their own brothers and sisters. Courtney is trying to get out of badness. I wish him the best of luck. At this time, I will let my words. One love, Jah, Rastafari, Nines. I never got to meet Nines. He was killed a few nights later in front of a grocery store in East New York. Courtney made it to Chicago and called to let me know that he was alright and to ask me to attend Nines' funeral in Brooklyn. He wanted someone to represent him there, but he understood what I told him that he understood when I told him that I didn't think that was a good idea. This thing they call posseism is the dreadfulest thing in the world, Courtney said. I never saw him again. Yes, I. Soldier in the field, you know? Yeah, man, so we just dropped that one there, so it look like we're about 2 more chapters left for the book done. 2 or 3, because them can't done. But I'm liking them still. You see it, except for the one there with Courtney and him. Courtney sound like, you know, you don't need no pram to start all the thing. But yeah, we give thanks, man. Share, like, and subscribe and help grow the thing. And make sure you put a like. Yeah, you give thanks.